Please welcome Dr. Jennifer Calley, President of the University of Texas at Arlington.
We are so pleased to be a sponsor of today's event. When you think of life sciences and healthcare, UTA is at the center of it. So we have a panel today that's going to be talking about the growth and expansion of our hospitals right here in Fort Worth and across the region. UTA is a talent engine, and if we want to have the talent we need for all of this growth that's happening, we have to have talented healthcare professionals. UTA has the largest public nursing school in the country. We have more than 13,000 nursing students. And we are growing every day, trying to find more placements in those clinical capacities, and the growth of the hospital systems will certainly help in expanding those opportunities for our fantastic students. Recently, we opened a brand new smart hospital facility on our Arlington campus that is just state-of-the-art and phenomenal to ensure that we're preparing our students to be effective as they move from classroom right into these hospital settings. So we're very proud of the talent development work that we do, not just in nursing, but across the healthcare sector. And that leads into our innovation, which is our other panel that we're going to be talking about today. UTA is a Carnegie Research One university, putting us among the top 5% of universities nationally. We engage in a wide range of research activities, and particularly in the healthcare sector, we have been growing the nature and kinds of research that we're doing, whether it's trying to find treatments for ALS, partnerships in gastroenterology research. We are focused on brain health, looking at how do we help to support Alzheimer's and dementia patients, looking at partnerships around epilepsy, and we have wonderful collaborations engaging with Cook Children's and expanding our research agenda in collaboration to focus on translating the science and engineering work that we're doing right into the clinical care so that we can make sure that we are treating patients directly. I went to one of our epilepsy labs just last week, and we got to learn how we were able to speed up the process for Cook Children's to understand exactly where an epileptic seizure was happening so that the surgeons could know exactly where to intervene, and so that we're not leaving patients waiting months or years waiting for that treatment that they need. So the innovation work that we're doing is just incredibly important, and UTA is continuing to expand its footprint. We have locations in Arlington, on the east side of Fort Worth. We have a research innovation center in downtown Fort Worth, and UTA West is coming in 2028. So I look forward to hearing from our panelists today, all of the great and innovative work that's happening right here in our community. Thank you.
Please welcome Steve Montgomery, President and CEO of the Fort Worth Chamber.
Thank you, Jennifer, so much. I am a proud Maverick and I'm a proud Longhorn. And when I act up, my wife likes to tell me I'm a horse or a cow. I think that's a compliment. Good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to see. Thanks for laughing at that. It's great to see so many business leaders in the room. So before we begin, I do want to extend a sincere thank you to Dr. Calley and the entire team at UTA and UTA West for your leadership and support and being our presenting sponsor. We appreciate your partnership and your ongoing investment in education, innovation, and opportunity in Fort Worth. And I'd also like to take the moment to recognize our other sponsors that made today possible. Our keynote sponsor, Huntington Bank, thank you, Mark. Our platinum sponsor, Alcon. Our silver sponsor, Frost. Thank you for your investments in allowing these conversations to take place. Your investment in Fort Worth is noted and appreciated. At the Fort Worth Chamber, we're proud to serve as a convener for discussions like this, bringing together leaders, innovators, and decision makers to focus on the opportunities that are shaping our economy and shaping our future. And there's no question that healthcare and life sciences are central to that future. Later this morning, as Dr. Calley mentioned, you'll hear from leaders of our major hospital systems about the transformational expansions going on across our community, investments that are not only reshaping the medical district, but they're strengthening the foundation of Fort Worth long term. But first, we're going to start with what's fueling that momentum, and that's innovation. Our first panel will highlight how the work within the walls of our hospitals can drive creation and commercialization of solutions that improve health, longevity, and the human experience. From breakthrough discoveries to commercialization to startup growth, Fort Worth is building a life science ecosystem that is advancing healthcare, but also creating jobs and attracting capital, positioning our community as a hub for innovation. That's the kind of progress that happens when strong partnerships between higher education, between industry, and the broader business community come together. And that's key to how we continue to foster a vibrant and prosperous local economy. Today's panel will explore where we are, where we're going, and what it will take to fully realize the economic potential of life sciences in North Texas. So let's get started. Please join me in welcoming our moderator and panelists, Dr. Denise Canales, Executive Director of Innovation and Strategic Partnerships at Texas A&M. I'm sorry.
I'm actually a Longhorn.
Oh, she's a Longhorn.
But I
Yes.
work for A&M, so I get the best of it all.
You're doing charity work, Denise. We appreciate it. Dr. Terry Russell, Managing Director of Interface Ventures. Caitlin McMinn, Executive Director of Tech Fort Worth. Thank you, Caitlin, for being here. Dr. Gabby Everett, Senior Director of Business Operations and Strategy at BioLabs Pegasus Park. And Dr. David Snow, Executive Director, Pegasus Park. Please welcome our guests to the stage.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Chamber, for this topic. It's an interesting thing when we have startups and we have the physical buildings that are happening around campus, and what is the linkage to that? And I think that we are all building, right? We're builders. We're building in Fort Worth, and that's the linkage. And at the end of this conversation, you'll see how tightly those are aligned. Thank you to the audience. I spent most of my career in healthcare, and I know what it feels like to have the bookends of life happen in your facility. And for you to be here and spend time with us is quite a gift. So thank you. It's not overlooked. Startups are really taking off in Fort Worth. Fort Worth is focusing on this. The region, we've got the Medical Innovation District happening. We've got the Switchyard Innovation District. My facility at A&M Fort Worth is right in the middle of that. There's a lot of investment that's happening and a lot of people towards accelerating this activity for the economic development of our region and for the good of our patients. So how does this activity relate to your hospital? That's the question. And I'm going to give you a very, very brief story. When I was working at the Texas Medical Center in Houston, I had the privilege of having a very big problem within my unit. I had an idea for how to solve it. I talked to my supervisor, who was very quick to get to yes, even on the big problems, and was able to create a software system that solved the problem for my unit. So that intellectual property spun out to a software company, and I was able to lead that and grow that and exit that. It started with the problem on my unit in the hospital. And so I know all of you, if you had to write down, is there a problem that if you solved it would impact patient care or satisfaction or your workers' daily life? We could all name one thing. So I would encourage you as we talk to think about that one thing. What's the thing that if it were fixed would impact the humans in your life and beyond your own walls? Because that's the objective when startups get going. It helps beyond your walls. And I'm not special, so I didn't have any special skill set. I just have a high tolerance for pain, I think. And I can find talent and pull people together to work together. It was people like these that are here with me today, really good friends. Thank you for doing this. But it was people like this who work external to our facilities in this innovation pipeline, and they all do very different things. I couldn't have had that happen if it weren't for people like this. And that little software tool actually was the first tool to automate research administration. So if you're not doing your research administration and your IRB and your IACUC and your conflict of interest and the financials on a spreadsheet, you're welcome. Um, but you can create things that change the world moving forward as well. So let's talk to these guys who are in our community. And I'd really like to know just from each of you, and I'll come sit over here, I think. But I'd really like to hear from each of you just what you do. And I want you to realize these guys are functioning in our community right now. And they're helping people who have aspirations to lead startups or to create startups or to solve some problems. You don't have to have the answer. You don't have to know how to get to the end goal. You just have to start talking to people like this. So if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you fit into that pipeline, because a thriving ecosystem, it requires an interlocking pipeline of people to help us do this work. And they're right here. So.
Do you want me to start? I'm on this end. Okay, so good morning. I'm David Snow. It's so nice to be with you all and to walk in a room and see so many friends. So thank you for the invitation to be here. I really appreciate it. Denise, I mean, you kind of triggered something in my memory. I think a lot of us here have a journey, and my professional background started with biochemistry and chemistry and chemical engineering. That's what my PhD is in, and I had no idea about anything related to intellectual property. I had no idea about the commercialization pathway. And when I graduated, my first job was actually, I got tapped in a startup company to spin out an adjacent startup company and lead as an entrepreneurial lead and build a BSL-2 laboratory and go through and take the lashes, the business lashes, if you will, and work towards monetizing intellectual capital and all those things that are critical along this pathway. And so, I've had the chance to work in higher education. I have not worked in a hospital. So I worked in a contract research laboratory, but I've led intellectual property monetization and economic development and efforts for a couple of R1 universities, research universities as well. And so now I lead Pegasus Park. And why does that matter? You're talking about the resources in particular. How do you get to that space? Well, the place matters. When you have people and programmatic activity that are engaging and building relationships, ultimately what you want to do is have a place that convenes those organizations and those people. And from a for-profit real estate development perspective, the value proposition is to not build and hope people show up. It's actually to allow that convening, the programmatic activity, and the people to drive what the real estate needs to look like. So when you build these places of innovation, why you see Gabby and I coming over here to Fort Worth regularly and often, not because we just love you guys, we do, but it actually is that what we believe in is that each one of these spaces have their own fingerprint because of the unique people and programs and expertise and skills and abilities that converge in those spaces. So we know that what happens here in Fort Worth is going to be uniquely different and is going to have your own fingerprint. And we want to build what we call soft landing sites for startup companies in our network, because our network, it's people that are really in this space, it's a small world, it's a small community. And so as we build relationships, we want to be able to give our innovators and our entrepreneurs the most reasonable likelihood of success. And that's going to be uniquely different depending on the technology and the vertical in that space. And so that's part of the why behind why we do this.
That's great. Thank you.
Man, I should have gone first. That was a fantastic response. So my name is Caitlin McMinn. I'm the executive director for Tech Fort Worth. I lovingly joke that we are Fort Worth's best kept secret, which I can't stand. So hopefully after this room or after this panel, you guys will leave knowing more about Tech Fort Worth. So we've been around for about 30 years. We are a true incubator accelerator that helps companies, anything like it says in the name, in the tech space. So that also includes medtech, biotech, and then really anything else outside of that. So really excited to be here today and to talk with everybody on this panel about the amazing overlap that's happening. And I know that DFW, Dallas versus Fort Worth, is a taboo thing, but it really doesn't need to be. And there's so much going on, and there's enough for everyone. And so that's really the point for this conversation. So I'm really excited to be on the panel.
And Tech Fort Worth may be one of the biggest kept secrets, but it's also created one of the region's biggest wins when it comes to life sciences, biotech, and pharma. Recently, AstraZeneca just created a huge new manufacturing expansion in Coppell, but AstraZeneca started as ZS Pharma that went through Tech Fort Worth and then was in the incubator in UNT Health. So that entire, billion-dollar infrastructure project that is employing hundreds of people in high-skilled manufacturing jobs, and it's not blue-collar manufacturing, it's
Right.
white lab coat. So it's very, very skilled manufacturing there. All of that started in Fort Worth in an incubator space. So they started
Absolutely.
out as a startup with a really cool idea that, maybe we need to pull potassium out of the blood for anyone who has high potassium levels. They had this really cool molecule, but they came out in this very scary space in biotech that we call the Valley of Death. And that's when you need to get your company out of the university for intellectual property reasons and capital raising reasons, but you're too early stage and you're too risky of a technology for any investor to want to invest in you. So what do? You don't have $4 to $5 million to build out your own facility, so you join one of these incubator spaces that is this shared lab facility, shared equipment, so you don't have to deal with that initial capital investment of using investor dollars for that infrastructure, and instead you get to use that investment money for your people, for your research, for looking for your clinical trials, your advisors, and that's what we do at BioLabs over in Pegasus Park. 32,000 square feet of shared lab space, $5 million in shared research equipment, and we bring companies in. It's a very flexible model, founder-friendly, investor-friendly, in that we don't take equity, which very, very important. And we're able to support the growth of those baby biotech companies as they go from that very early stage to jumping up in the game and getting serious investment.
No, I would like to just throw one thing in. So your company has been around for 30 years operating within this region, and you hear a name like AstraZeneca and you think it just was always big. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that it's people exactly like you sitting in this audience that have an issue, or you see a little opportunity, and just acting on it and knowing the names and the people to call to say, hey, I want to do this, and you're going to connect with so many people who can help you. So you don't think about the end, just think about, it's like the patient right in front of you. You just think about the patient right in front of you. It's very similar. So Terry, tell us what you do in this ecosystem.
Sure. Terry Russell, run Interface Ventures. So we're a venture studio. So if any of you are raising money, don't talk to me. We don't invest in outside projects. We have opinions about everything, but we don't write those checks. So we mentioned the Valley of Death. That's sort of our daily commute. So we often engage first with technologies coming out of universities or national laboratories. We operate in healthcare, energy, and national security, dual-use technologies. Often things as opposed to code, usually complex, regulated environments with expensive development life cycles. My father accuses me of not receiving the easy gene. Our choosing Dallas-Fort Worth was deliberate and intentional. About 6 or 7 years ago, we moved down from the Boston area. Great folks up there, but it becomes a little bit of an echo chamber. We came here because we saw this is where the puck is going. Whether it's Dallas or Fort Worth, we see the emergence of great research and on one end of the spectrum, and a lot of rich folks on the other end of the spectrum, and the beginnings of the connective tissue between the two. We're seeing proof points of companies like Colossal getting valued at $10 billion, Reata, multi-billion-dollar valuations, and we think this is a great place to form new companies. That being said, there's some work that still needs to be done, and that's on the institution side with education for innovators so that they're doing a better job of explaining their innovations in language that licensees and partners and strategics can understand, because I don't care how bright you are, if you can't communicate it to someone, may as well be hiding in a closet somewhere. The second thing that needs to happen is better institutional processes for stop making it hard to continue the experimental process from pure science to commercial, right? Large upfronts, complex licensing thing. We can have a whole discussion around that. A component of that is making sure there's a tighter loop between the problem being solved and what the investigators are doing. For many years, that's been in utter isolation. Professors go off, they solve whatever problems they think are interesting, regardless of their commercial potential. Fine. Every civilized society should have smart people you just give money to dream up cool things. In the funding environment we've moved into, with government funding being cut, I think organizations do this at their peril. The more you can connect real-world problems back to the very earliest stages of basic research, the more likely you are to stop going down paths that won't benefit patients, that won't benefit society larger, and you can redistribute those scarce resources to those projects that will move humanity ahead. There's an inevitable financial component to that, right? And so that's where we come in. We're capitalists. We have a tendency to look through the world through market lenses. We are all market participants here. We are all sending market signals. The question I would have for all of us in this room is, how good of a market participant are you? Are you clear about what you're trying to achieve? Are you making it easy for other market participants to interact and work with you? And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be very clear about what we do, things we like, things we don't like, things, ways we can help, ways we can't. And I think the final component is money. Tech Fort Worth's a great example. They had some really great successes. We need more of this. We need the early stage dollars. The coastal venture funds will not seed companies in Dallas, or Fort Worth, or San Antonio, or Houston. These need to be Texas local funded entities, whether that's institutional money helping you to de-risk the technology, whether it's SBIR support services to help you write the grants, or whether it's angels or venture capitalists who are willing to go that early, needs to be local. That is challenging for healthcare and biotech in particular, because the pattern recognition involved, the diligence is a lot harder than trying to diligence a SaaS tool or AI or something like that, or the next real estate deal.
And the timeline is so much longer
Absolutely.
before you get that return.
So that's, and I think Caitlin is the person to talk to about those sorts of funds and how we can template that and expand it. So we'd love to see more of everything here. That's why we chose this part of the world to continue our operations.
That sounds like a book title, More of Everything. That's really good. From the Fort Worth perspective, there's a couple of paths that startups can thrive. So we can be a place that attracts startups, and that's the soft landing that we were talking about. And a lot of work is happening around that to make this a place where entrepreneurs want to bring their companies. We're actively working to bring them into the downtown Fort Worth region. And I know a lot of the other academics, I know the innovation people at the other academics, they're working towards that too. So are the economic development people, the city and the county. It's very high priority. And so I think you're going to see that. You're going to see a lot of startups that started somewhere else coming here, and you see a migration towards Texas. There's workforce development that's pulling it. There's a very diverse workforce that's very important. There is funding. And so getting the people here who could invest in these companies to be a little more risk tolerant and to understand that you're going to have some failures, not everything's a home run, will be very, very helpful. The other way for these companies to happen here, again, is to come out of the clinical setting. And I know people are used to spinning companies out of academic settings, but I do believe that one of the absolute best places for companies to start is within the clinical setting. It's within your walls. And that's because you start with the end user from the very beginning. In startups, you're always doing, is there a product market fit? Well, when it starts in the market, it fits. And so that's a huge hurdle that a lot of people get blocked by. And so opening innovation within your actual walls will be huge for you and for the patients in the region. And by innovation, you can define it a couple of ways. I met some wonderful people earlier in the lobby. There they are right there. That they integrate technology and all kinds of things that you need And that is fantastic and very important. But if you can build the solution, that's pretty cool too. So
Can I make a quick comment on that real fast?
absolutely, yes.
So just to sort of tease that out just a little bit and pull out a couple of veins and kind of give you a little bit of a through line. For example, at Pegasus Park, we have PCCI, which is the Parkland Center for Clinical Innovation. It's a nonprofit that they have spun out of the hospital that basically takes their data and their software tech to create solutions, first of all, in-house. So can they solve their own problems? And then is there some commercial value externally to that so that they can package it and spin it out as a solution that they can then license to other healthcare systems? So, I mean, that's just one example. Steve Miff is an incredible guy. If you're interested in, walking that path, happy to make introductions there. The other piece that I would just like to say is, people, you were talking, Terry was talking about, coastal funds don't invest in Dallas unless they move to Dallas, right? And so, I mean, but what's really interesting is when you see these convenings, and in Pegasus Park, our mission is not to own everything, but it is to be a convener. And so when we cluster these biotechs and startups together, what we see is also a clustering effect of capital. And so at Pegasus Park, we have this suite now of what we call entrepreneurial support organizations, where they're running programmatic activity to assist, innovators and faculty and different people in different stages of the commercialization game in terms of their education and awareness and their, readiness for investment. But they also have investment vehicles attached. And so we have like Alloy Therapeutics and Mass Challenge and Highlander Health and, these other organizations, Health Wildcatters. I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't mention Hubert on stage. Everywhere I go, I mention Hubert on stage. And so what I would say is, again, if you're in a healthcare setting, and you're trying to understand, you may understand a lot of different avenues about investment in the real estate and hospital expansion, things like that, but you may not understand or have a comfort level and sophistication within biotech investment. I would say look into your organizations and start assigning people to go participate as business mentors and mentors in some of these accelerator cohorts, where they can begin networking and get alongside sophisticated investors in this space, and then actually gain the skills and abilities they need to maybe think about what would be my investment thesis. And the reason why all those ESOs are, existing at Pegasus Park is because they have a different investment thesis. They're not actually overlapping with each other. They're seeing so many different deals, but their LPs, their partners that have given them money have defined for them, these are the types of sectors that we want to invest in. And so they have a limited scope of their investment. And that's what makes the collaboration, the hyper-collaborative environment in Dallas really successful, and also in Fort Worth, I think, especially with Cowtown Angels.
Yeah, I would. That's true. And one thing that you'll notice is that the units and the groups that facilitate this work, so the Tech Fort Worths and the Healthcare Wildcatters, they know each other. They work very collaboratively. If any of this is sounding interesting to you, and I will get guidance from up above regarding the time, and I'm not certain. We got about 5 minutes. Okay. If things like this are sounding interesting to you, and you're like, we just don't do that at our hospital. We buy the tech. We are innovative in that we use what's new, but there is a problem that I really want to think about solving. Or I have a faculty member who I know has just been going on and on about this, and they might have a great idea. And if the question is, what do we do? Like, how do we just start? I would say, call me. Call me. We can get you in the right direction. I have seen fantastic technology development, commercialization, and innovation programs at hospitals led by one human being. It could be as simple as one hire. It really can. It really can. Give them a desk, a little bit of a budget, give them a year, and hire someone who's skilled at this. And you might be really surprised at the assets that you have that are solving your problem, but they're solving your neighbor's problem. And we want to do that. We don't want to just solve the problems within our own facilities' walls.
And there's a lot of cool things also that can be done in corporate partnerships with universities. You know, UTA as an R1 research institution has bioengineering programs that have capstone projects that started with a clinical need, right? So if you have a problem and you need to attack it and you want as many eyes and as many hands and brains thinking on it as possible, partnering with the local universities that can help you with that tinkering stage and ideation stage can get you there too.
Yeah, and I think just real quick on the Tech Fort Worth side, that's also a big part of our secret sauce is because we've been around so long, we've been able to cultivate these relationships with all of our major academic institutions. And so we feed each other, and that part is crucial. It has to be for this ecosystem to work.
Thank you. So really, I hope you got this was brief for this topic. I hope we have the opportunity to touch on this again in this region because I know healthcare leaders in Fort Worth and the Fort Worth region is very interested and a lot of movements happening in this space. And I want you, if you have the desire to be part of it, I want you to be part of it.
And also kudos to the chamber for putting this on because
Amazing.
Terry, exactly what you were saying, starting with the end in mind, that the innovation should be talking to the healthcare systems every single step of the way. So having an innovation panel followed by a healthcare panel with leaders, everybody in the same room, I think that is why DFW and North Texas is going to excel.
I agree. Right. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, panelists. If we could give everyone a round of applause.
Please welcome to the stage Mark Nerdin, Fort Worth Region Manager for Huntington Bank.
Good morning and welcome. We're glad that you all joined us this morning. And thank you to our previous panel for a thoughtful discussion on life sciences innovation. It's exciting to see the level of research and collaboration and entrepreneurship that's taking place here in North Texas and in Fort Worth, and the role that it's playing in advancing healthcare in meaningful ways. On behalf of Huntington Bank, we are very pleased to be the keynote sponsor and to partner with the Fort Worth Chamber on bringing these important conversations to the business community. At Huntington, we see firsthand how critical it is to invest in the ecosystems that drive long-term growth. That includes healthcare, innovation, and the infrastructure that supports both. Supporting conversations like this isn't just about being in the room. It's about helping communities like Fort Worth continue to expand opportunity, attract investment, and strengthen the foundation for businesses and families alike. And as we've already heard, innovation is accelerating across the healthcare space. What we're going to focus on now is the scale of investment happening right here on the ground in Fort Worth. Our next keynote panel brings that scale into sharp focus. Across the medical district and beyond, our major hospital systems are making significant capital investments, expanding facilities, increasing capacity, and introducing advanced technologies to meet the needs of a rapidly growing population. But these projects are about more than growth in healthcare services. They represent new jobs, expanded workforce pipelines, improved access to care, and increased economic benefit that benefits the entire region. This is the kind of momentum that reinforces Fort Worth's position as one of the most opportunity-rich cities in the country. And it's exactly the kind of progress the Fort Worth Chamber works to convene and support. We're fortunate to have a group of leaders here today who are driving these efforts forward. And now I'm going to call the panel and our moderator to the stage. And as I do, let me introduce them. First of all, our moderator for the panel today is Jessica Rogers, Director of Economic Development for the City of Fort Worth. On the panel is Dr. Karen Duncan, President and CEO of JPS Health Systems. Amy Knight, Chief Administrative Officer at Cook Children's Hospital. The President of the DFW West Region and President of All Saints Medical Center at Baylor Scott & White, Charles Williams. And Jared Shelton, President of Texas Health Harris Methodist Hospital in Fort Worth. Please join me in welcoming our next panel.
All right, good morning, everyone. Oh, isn't this a great panel? I'm like, I have a lot of questions, so I'm going to make sure that I try and get through it as many as I can. And some of them are just like, I'm curious because I'm new to Fort Worth and I'd love to learn more about all these hospital systems we have represented. But one thing I want to tell you from an economic development perspective is when we think about healthcare, looking at it from that economic development lens is sometimes very different and not always the first approach, but it's my first approach, and it's probably central to a lot of your kind of day-to-day life. And so I'd really like to start off with the panel just talking about each of you, kind of introduce yourself and talk about the expansions or initiatives that you have going on at your systems and really what is driving that strategy and that choice to make that investment here in Fort Worth. Start with Jared.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jared Shelton. I'm president at Texas Health Harris Methodist Hospital in Fort Worth. And I thought I might have the longest title, but Charles, congratulations. You're the winner. I've been with Texas Health for 16 years, but moved over here to Fort Worth about a year and a half ago. And it's been wonderful to be ingrained in the community and looking forward to getting more involved with the chamber, and thanks everybody for being here. We opened our new Justin Tower just a few years ago, and Emily Delgado, who's on my team here with THR, just reminded me that it was about 10 years ago, almost to the day, that we took those plans to the city for approval to get the ball rolling. We have just recently begun construction and hoping to wrap that up this summer on an additional almost $50 million to build out additional floors in that Justin Tower, which brings the bed total within the last 5 years up to an additional 200 beds at my facility. And one of the main drivers for that is really just access. There was a period of time for several years, especially during the COVID pandemic, where we were holding on average roughly 100 patients a day in our emergency department. We just did not have enough inpatient bed capacity to meet the needs of the community, and we really felt like we had to do something about it. And so we have invested hundreds of millions of dollars on our campus just within the last 5 years. And the new beds that we will bring on later this summer are going to help continue to ease that. We're down to about 30 holds a day in the emergency department, and we believe that this build out of these shell units is going to help drive that number down close to zero on a daily basis. So we're very excited about that. That allows our caregivers really to deliver the right care to the right patient at the right time in the right place and setting, which would be on a unit in the beautiful Justin Tower.
Oh, wow. I think you spoke for all of us, Jared. Wow. You may not have the longest title, but no, I think what we have all in common, I'll start off by introducing myself. I am Karen Duncan, and I'm president and CEO of JPS Health Network. Career-wise, I started at the patient care level and as a pediatrician in a safety net hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. and then went on to Chicago and worked there in their safety net healthcare system, and then had the privilege of really coming to Fort Worth about 9 years ago. I told them I'd give them 2 years, but when you come to Fort Worth, it's hard to leave. Fort Worth is doing some amazing work, and I actually have an office for all of you at JPS to help us solve some of our solutions in a very innovative way. I think what we all have in common is that we see the environment in which we exist. Tarrant County is growing rapidly. Fort Worth is growing rapidly. Just facts to know as to the importance of why a safety net hospital or a public health care system becomes important to a community and how much value that adds to your community. Texas continues to have the largest uninsured population. And so when we talk about expansion and growth, it is really your public health care system that is providing the majority of that service to the community. And that's very important. We also provide as a safety net hospital. The lens by which we look when we're looking at expansion is a little bit different than what my partners here look through. Their lens looks a little bit different. So they do talk about market share. In a safety net hospital in which your community does have a large population of uninsured, and of course, what comes with uninsured are high needs within communities. They often have delayed health care, so when they enter into the healthcare system, and they enter into all of our healthcare systems, but when they enter, they're often, sicker. They have not had access. And they often are in communities in which there are barriers to health care. And so we call those social determinants of health. And we understand that if we don't begin to address some of those barriers, such as food insecurity and housing insecurity and job insecurity, if we don't address that, then we're not going to be able to make much impact in that community. So the lens by which we begin in a safety net hospital and the value that we add to the community, and when we look at expansion, it is really at the community level and it's community need. It's not real market share. So I do want to make that difference because it takes an ecosystem like this in which we understand that all of these communities look different, but all are deserving of equitable health care, that we at JPS play that role. So when we looked at expansion, and let me also give you a fact that you can take away. You may have seen in the medical district in the years that you've been here, all these cranes going up. They were never really at JPS until recently, I'll be honest. Our main hospital dates back to almost 1930, and we have patched on to it since then. The last construction that was actually done at JPS was almost 20 years ago. And so when the community came forth and supported our bond, that allowed us begin to finance some of the healthcare needs for Tarrant County. That was huge for us. And so we have been able to get a crane, the little things that you thank for. But we've been able to begin to really come up with how do we move forward and how do we expand in the right way. So our biggest project is our hospital, our new hospital, which will replace the old hospital, but will also add some additional beds and additional access to the community. We always look to the community to expand, and so we do have a very rich community network with over 26 sites. And so we'll continue to take healthcare closer to the patient. And this is where innovation can really help us, is really kind of how do people access healthcare? How do we get it closer to home so that we can overcome some of these barriers? And then we'll have an outpatient site also. And then we do see ourselves to be regional leaders as trauma, and then also for behavioral health. And so we have really been honored to be able to be one of we may be the only psych emergency center. Most individuals who are experiencing a mental health crisis right now have to go to an emergency room in order to begin their treatment. And we have what's called a psychiatric emergency center with highly skilled individuals that understand what the needs are when you are in a mental health crisis. So I'm so excited that it's been 20 years, but there's been much needs with the growth, and especially growth in the communities that truly do need us. So thank you.
It was very exciting, groundbreaking. Last week?
Yeah, it was
that
last
great.
week. Yeah.
All right. Oh, go to switch to this side.
All right. Well, it's great to be with you all today. I'm Amy Knight. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer at Cook Children's. I have been here a year next week. So new back to the Fort Worth community. So I started my career actually in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in children's health, and have been in a circuitous route through Atlanta and Washington, D.C. And so glad to be back in Texas. And one of the things that attracted me back was the exciting things happening in Fort Worth. So want to talk a little bit about Cook Children's and some of the differences. We're partners with everyone on this panel, which is fantastic, as we need to be. But children's hospitals and children's health have undergone really a lot of change in the past couple of decades. So we do have cranes. We have Blue Peaks and Blue Cranes. And you'll see those multiply in the next little bit. So I'm gonna start there really. So we have a $1.3 billion project going on, adding the West Tower, which will add over 200 beds, about 700,000 square feet, that really enables growth and innovation. That's what we are looking at. How do we continue to serve this community? But I want us all to understand that as a pediatric healthcare system, we are not just about that hospital and that campus. So what we're building there really helps serve babies from throughout the region. So we, as Cook Children's, have a presence in 8 different counties on the ground in various ways. Tarrant County is our home as a healthcare system, and so I love LV2. We can talk about that in a little bit. But we have 9 neighborhood health centers in Tarrant County. We have urgent care centers, really, as Jared said and Karen said, trying to meet patients where they are. A lot of our growth on the main campus is in response to the growth in children. And I watch, obviously, the growth in this area with huge excitement, and it's kind of terrifying at the same time. And I really look at my adult partners in that, because a lot of it is the baby boomers and things of that nature. So if we can take care of the kids so they can take care of everyone else, we'll be in great shape. But kids are growing too. So we're the largest NICU in one of 2 in Texas, but the largest in North Texas by a long shot. And so we're growing that. We're growing our cardiac program, the demand of kids. We have kids coming from hundreds of miles away in West Texas. That's probably the biggest difference. We have large health systems up here, but we can't put a hospital in every town in those 8 counties. We would dilute quality, and we would dilute innovation. So having that hub campus here in Fort Worth is super important to us, but being connected to the communities that we serve, and most importantly, Tarrant County. We can talk about health outcomes all day long, and children are no different than adults in that. So as I look at you all as employers, I mean, we're employers too, right? All of us sitting up here, and the next workforce, the next generation of workforce are the kids coming through our clinics and our hospitals. So how we prepare them through health and education to work for all of us is something that we are super excited to be part of and talk to you. So we're now one of the 10 largest pediatric healthcare systems in the country, and that's in large part due to the fastest growing state and the fastest growing region in the state. So we're here to partner with you to continue to attract business. It's another piece. If you've ever had a child with special needs, you know you need a really excellent pediatric healthcare system, and we want to be that. So it's a little bit about us, and turn it to Charles.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Williams, and it is just an awesome privilege to be here. I love hearing from my partner over at JPS, because you're right, it is needed. I had the opportunity, I was actually born at JPS and worked there for 4 years.
You worked for us, didn't you, before you left?
I was there 4.5 years. I finished the last tower in 2009. 232,000 square feet. I know all parts of that building. But Baylor Scott & White, if you don't know, we are blessed to be the largest healthcare system in the state of Texas. We have over 50 hospitals, over 1,300 ambulatory sites, 59,000 employees, and 8,000 employed physicians. We have a health plan and over 1.3 patient encounters, but each of them are very important, one at a time. For me, I entered healthcare as a therapist. I am a clinician. I still have my clinical license. And when I decided to go into healthcare, I said my goal was to always be with the system that put patients first. So I want you to think a little differently today when we think about expansion. We've all heard the numbers. Fort Worth is growing at what, 64 people a day? DFW is adding 380 people a day. One person moves to Texas every 60 seconds. We all heard those numbers. You probably saw it this morning on your traffic driving. Your neighborhoods are packed, your grocery stores are packed. It's real. But the reality is, at Baylor Scott and White, and I'm so happy that life sciences spoke first, because we believe expansion is more than bed capacity. Let me give you some numbers to think about. In the United States of America, there's a roughly 342.5 million people. When you look at inpatient admissions across this country, there's about 35 million inpatient admissions. About 80 to 90% of them, roughly 30 million, are unique admissions. What that means is they're one-time going. Some of them wind up in hospital twice. So if you do the math on that, you're looking at roughly only about 8.8% of a given population will spend time in a hospital in a year. So if our only focus in expansion and keeping a healthy community is inpatient care, what does that say about how we feel about the other 91.2% of the population? Because as businesses begin to grow, health means business. Think about the production that you lose with absenteeism, sick employees. You've heard a lot about our education system. Well, if you're sick, you can't learn. So for us, we have invested heavily into that innovation. In fact, we have our own application where we're on version 8. We are attempting to move from a supply model that healthcare has done for over 100 years to a demand model, meaning connecting with our patients, our customers. And yes, we call you customers because your customers always, patients sometimes, in an episodic fashion. Ensuring that everyone that we work with is connected and empowered for their labs, their primary care, their pharmaceuticals, so that you know what's going on. And oh, by the way, I'm sure all of you have lots of time. No, there's a poverty of time. Through our app, ensuring that you have the ability for virtual care services when needed. Because we want to be face-to-face when it matters, but virtual when convenient. So now you're not leaving the job, driving to a site, parking, walking in, waiting in line, but you can fire it up right from your desk, get the care that you need, and stay right where you are. In addition to that, if we're going to have care, we have to have providers. So we are heavily invested. 8 of our hospitals, including All Saints here, do lots of education for graduate medical education. What am I talking about? Physicians. We train doctors, over 150 residents after medical school on our campus in emergency medicine, internal medicine, surgery, OB, because we are the baby hospital. As you know, we delivered 6,847 babies just last year, larger than some of our small municipalities. And one of the programs we're very proud of is we have started only the second anesthesia physician training program in DFW. Now you might go, whoa, why is that important? Well, if you have surgery, it's important that you wake up. So we're only the second one. Other expansions, and we don't like to talk about this, and thank you for the great work at JPS. 5% of all of the healthcare stays in America are behavioral health, and no one wants to touch it. Well, for the first time in United States history, Baylor Scott and White launched a true joint venture partnership with Geode Health. And we have 13 sites already in Texas, 8 in DFW, 3 in Austin, 2 in Houston. And we have made a committed investment. We will have 100 sites in this state in the next 5 years. And I'm not just talking call somebody on the phone. I'm talking psychiatrist-led, psychologist, advanced provider, and a therapist, where you can have on-site when needed again and virtual when it's convenient. These are the type of things, multifactorial, to say, we want to be there for you. And also in this app, and I'll stop with this other piece, we want to empower you. Because as people move here, they're trying to find a grocery store. They're trying to find their schools. Well, if we can connect with you through a digital app, we can empower you. Just imagine going to DFW Airport and having to call somebody and ask them, what terminal do I need to be in? What gate is my flight? No, you look at your app and it guides you through that big city. It guides you to your gate. So you have a level of confidence you're getting on the right plane. That's the connection we're working to expand and grow. We want you to be empowered so that you are strong from birth to your years of grace.
Well, in case anyone didn't get a full picture, I think there's some pretty exciting and fantastic things happening in healthcare in Fort Worth. And just sort of one theme that I heard each of you is you talked about your workforce. You talked about how important it is to have great quality employees at your systems, and that directly translates to great outcomes is sort of a theme that so I'd love for each of you to maybe talk about how your approach or what your approach is to developing your workforce, knowing what that ultimate outcome that you're aiming towards, and also acknowledging that all four of you represent four incredibly large employers in our region, and many people that are moving here are probably looking for jobs in your new facilities. So maybe talk a little bit about that workforce development, and we can start. Amy, we want to start this time?
Sure.
We'll mix it up.
Happy to. I mean, workforce development's a huge priority for us. So in pediatric workforce, I'm going to differentiate a little bit. I would say is hyper subspecialized. So to give you an example, if we are bringing on a nurse, they require additional training to be a pediatric nurse. An anesthesiologist that came up, which is a huge need right now. So you can become an anesthesiologist, but to become a pediatric anesthesiologist, it's usually at least 2 years more of training. So we kind of have a double whammy of a challenge here. So we need to get people trained. And I think we also need to get that subspecialization. It's no surprise. I mean, you all lived through COVID with all of us. There was a huge shortage after COVID. We've come out of that in some ways, but not in many ways. And I think we all share, whether we're a pediatric hospital or an adult hospital, some of the key ancillary areas are some of our biggest struggles. So there's huge opportunities to partner with the universities in the room. Jennifer talked about UTA and their nursing school. We have TCU graduating nurses. We have the largest pediatric nurse residency in the country to bring pediatric nurses on and retain them. It's hard to work in a children's ICU. So to make sure they understand the capacity of that, to do that, we as employers also have the opportunity to work together to train. We're graduating, and Karen can talk even more about this too, our first workforce out of LVT, which is a Las Vegas Trail collaborative that we have with
great partnership. This
Great,
really
yes.
is first public-private partnership. Really looking at a community of need and really starting at ground level with community activists. And I'm sorry to jump in, but I'm so excited about this.
I mean, and to have them graduate and
It did, but it started with community individuals that really said, let's start from the beginning and build a community as opposed to just throwing something into a community. And for Cook and JPS to come together in a public-private partnership to do that really, took those barriers or kind of how we operate differently and really showed how a strong collaboration can really work to impact a community. So I'm sorry.
No. I mean, I think that's exactly, and we need the business community to work with us on that because we're also, like I said earlier, growing your future employees. So how do we continue? Education is absolutely critical. Health and education to me go hand in hand. So we need to continue to look at that, partner with our university friends, partner with others. Some are 2-year programs. Not everything requires 16 years of training. Many of our subspecialties do. But part of that is also innovating our workforce. So how do we look at care models differently? How do we bring some of that technology to the bedside, whether it's AI or whether that's a digital experience? Does it always need to be, we've all sat in different hospital settings waiting for the doctor to come because they're in clinic or X, Y, and Z. How does technology help us do that differently? So we're trying, obviously, to grow the workforce, but also trying to use it smartly. That'll decrease healthcare costs. We're also employers in that regard, and we're seeing all of that. So I think the supply and demand issue, and it's our partnership that'll make that stronger on a medical center campus in the community, but especially connecting with the community. We have so many young, bright kids in this area, and making sure that they can see pathways for themselves is incredibly important.
And I failed to share, because I apologize, our expansion. We do have the main campus here. If you look throughout our region in this city, we have about 5 of those emergency hospitals you've seen. You may have read last week with the Fort Worth report, we are building a new facility, small hospital in Willow Park. We're also building one in Alliance, and coming in the fall, we will be groundbreaking because part of a successful workforce in a community is that all our communities are getting the care that they need. And one of the things, and I want to applaud, if you think about the studies, life expectancy in the nation is around 79. Texas is a little lower, around 76. UT Southwestern did a study a few years ago, and the lowest zip code life expectancy in the state of Texas was 76104. Guys, all of our hospitals sit in 76104. But it's not the west side of 35. It's the east side. And sadly, guys, up until hopefully this year, the only people to ever put a health center on that side of 35 has been JPS. But one of the things we're going to do is we are going to be building a small hospital east of 35 because it must be done. We have to give care everywhere. And they're going to be just as nice as the one in Alliance, just as nice as the one in Willow Park, because they deserve the same care. We're adding clinics all over the place. We have over 200 ambulatory sites around here. But workforce. I can't stress enough. You can build all the beds, but if you can't staff them, it's just empty, beautiful space. Nursing continues to be, and I tell my wife, I thank my wife who's sitting here, she's a nurse educator. If we don't have nurses to teach the nurses, we'll never have enough. But radiology, many of us are struggling to get, and guys, by the way, doctors can only do diagnosis 2 ways, through radiology or lab. Everything else is their experience and their guessing. So if no one's running the MRI, the X-ray, or the CT machine, we got a problem. Lab is a dying profession. 2 years ago, the average age for phlebotomists was around 58 in the lab business. Quest did a study on that. It was scary. So what we're doing is we are training our own. We're partnering with UTA, TCC, Tarleton, all of them, nursing schools, the medical schools. But we can't forget our non-clinicians. We're working with schools like Uplift High School to ensure that the high school kids see healthcare as a viable option. Everybody doesn't have to like blood. I need accountants. I need engineers. I will tell you, my most important hire is not the physician, no disrespect, Dr. Duncan, but it's my engineer. You're talking about a person that if the lights go off, we can't do surgery. If the water stops running, I can't house patients. EVS, the fastest way to close a hospital is if it is not clean. The relative humidity and the temperature must be right for OR to take place. So we are struggling because of the cost. Many of us in some of those areas, we're battling Buc-ee's for staff. Because if you walk through Buc-ee's, they pay pretty good. So it is a continuing challenge, but nursing continues to be there, but those ancillary departments are growing and growing fast.
Karen?
Yeah, so much like Amy and Charles, we understand how important that workforce pipeline is. And so having our academic partners who understand what the healthcare needs, both current and future. And I will stop here to say, and I think we have to give this a lot of thought, especially as these external forces are converging and forcing us to think of healthcare differently, that the healthcare worker of today, and I see some of my team members here, and I preach this like every Monday, that the healthcare workers of today will not be the healthcare workers of tomorrow. And we've got to reskill a lot of our current healthcare workers to be able to do the work that innovation and technology is going to bring forward. So we can no longer train doctors the same way, to educate, healthcare workers in the same way. We truly do have to think outside the box. But to Charles' point, we do have to, begin to develop that pipeline. And often, and I heard Amy also talk about the LVT area, it's really beginning as early as you can. And right now we've been using some of our junior high schools and, of course, our high school. And we have what's called a SHINE program. And I have Shannon Fletcher, who's here as my chief of staff. And she thinks our business is really in this SHINE program and not in healthcare. I'm just teasing. But we have a SHINE program that was actually funded by the governor. Governor Abbott, and what it allows us to do is to have paid internships for high school students to apply for, and it immerses them in the healthcare settings, and it is amazing how they are when they begin and when they end, because I think often if you've not come from a family in which there's been a healthcare environment, you think there's only two things two professions in healthcare, a nurse or a doctor. And yet, to Charles' point, there is so much more that supports that nurse and doctors that helps with really impacting healthcare. So for us, it's really about developing that pipeline, but more importantly, beginning to understand who the disruptors are in healthcare. Amazon is a disruptor. I mean, Amazon is going to get you what you want now. And they are also looking at that when it comes to healthcare. And so we've got to begin to look at what that new healthcare delivery model is going to look like, and how do we reskill what we're currently different to do what we're going to need to do.
Jared?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what my friends up here have said. Relationships really are the secret sauce. And so we are very blessed here in the North Texas community to have partners like UTA and TCC and TCU and a host of higher education destinations where we're able to work together to help plan out what that workforce of the future needs to look like. But we also know that sometimes you got to grow your own. And as far as innovation goes, we're really looking at innovative new ways to meet the needs of the community, meet the needs of our hospitals and other care facilities. And so we're doing some different things. One of those is called our PCT apprenticeship program. And to your point about not every young person in our community knows that healthcare is an option. And sometimes you've got to go and get into school, pay for school, and go through those programs before you can start the job. We're actually putting those people on site, paying them to train with us to become a PCT, and then those folks will transition from a patient care technician oftentimes into eventually becoming a registered nurse with us. And we've got a number of folks who have made that transition. We've also looked at bridge programs that we've had for many years that have been wildly successful for associate's degree nurses or LVNs, and having those folks on our team providing care, and if they so wish to advance to become a BSN, then we've got opportunities to get them plugged in through tuition reimbursement. We can make it affordable. They can continue to work while they're training and getting the skills that they need for their career in the long term. So it's got to be multifaceted. We can't just have one silver bullet. It really does take the entire ecosystem of all of us working together to meet the needs of our community.
Right. So I'm going to throw this one just out for anyone. But our first panel talked about innovation. They talked about entrepreneurship. So I'm curious, sitting from the large system perspective, what has been your approach to developing research, commercialization, entrepreneurship, and how are you seeing that take an effect and have an impact at your system?
So I'll stick with our app. Within our app technology, like I said, we're on Edition 8. We have an entire team. We went out and we hired people from Amazon, Walmart, all of these companies, and we started having them test different pilots on maybe an exercise app, a headache app. If you have a friend that's had a baby at our hospital, one of the things they were exposed to is a postpartum app. Because if you've had a baby, one of the things every woman in here, I think, shares is everyone takes care of the baby. But on week 1, when your body's feeling a little different, you're like, is this normal? Week 2, you're like, okay, is this right? So you're online looking for all this information. Well, in our app, every week, backed by doctors, is telling you should be feeling this, this is what's going on. And someone in our team is actually reaching out to you, checking on you to ensure that you're getting the care you need. But we didn't stop there. With all of these different apps, because we have the benefit of over 100 years. Scott and White was started in 1897. Baylor was started in 1903. We have over 100 years of patient experience, and with our employees. We've taken that and we've packaged it with a company we started called Levanto. And with Levanto, this is a digitally enabled tech solution that's B2B, that we can go to businesses and say, listen, we want to help you provide this to your staff, because if you're self-insured, that's a big deal. That's a big cost. And even if you're not self-insured, the premiums you're paying for your employees is a big deal. So you can keep your staff on the job. And what we have found has been successful. The Dallas Cowboys have signed on to us. Nebraska Furniture Mart is now using our product. And we're talking to other companies because we don't want you in the hospital. It is not your goal to be the patient in room 105. It's your goal to live your life and be the fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, husbands, and wives. So that's how we want to use technology and AI as our rocket fuel to get us to serve and empower you to be better.
I'll just add briefly, I think all of the technology world, we're all immersed in that, and how to get it and how to use it in a way that is helpful and not redundant or hurtful even sometimes. And I think that's really a toggle and a balance there. I'd like to talk a little bit more about kind of the research question as well. So Cook Children's has what we like to call master clinicians. So if you go to the other side of the Metroplex and look at the pediatric specialists over there, a lot of their time may be in bench research or other things. So we have people that are like full-time clinicians. You'd be surprised, but we have 500 research studies going on in various forms, clinical trials and other at Cook Children's today. One of our goals and part of our expansion is to accelerate that. We don't want to be redundant of what's happening in the market. So by working, or not even in our market, the national market of pediatric healthcare, there's a lot going on in the basic research, but we have opportunities to partner with UTA, with Texas A&M, with TCU, with Tarleton TCC, and others to say UNT. How is it that we can leverage the expertise that you have and the expertise that we have to move faster? The drug industry is changing quickly, and a lot of the therapeutics that we're seeing out there are high cost and very difficult. So how to be a part of the solution and bringing those to the bedside more quickly is a big part of what we're doing. So I think we're trying to see what is the role we can play in that versus just being redundant with what's happened across the country for years. Not to mention that the federal government has vastly reduced funding for research, and how we make up that difference with smarts, not necessarily with dollars. But I think, in this room is, and we heard on the prior panel, exactly what needs to be happening in this space, and that collaboration is going to be critical.
I think I was waiting to see how long it would take somebody up here to say AI, because it seems like if you go to anything right now, AI is the topic du jour. You guys know what I'm talking about? Which is rich, I think, for an industry like ours who still uses fax machines. So the irony is not lost on me.
We couldn't afford fax machines.
You have courier pigeons, right?
But we, smoke signals and all sorts of things are still we're still looking into. But no, artificial intelligence certainly in the healthcare space is something that excites us. scares us a little bit as far as what happens if you don't design it the right way. At Texas Health, we're looking at creating artificial intelligence solutions that still have a human in the loop, but is really aimed at ultimately two things. One is improving the ability of our caregivers to deliver high quality care. We want to have the very best outcomes and the very best experience for our patients. And that starts with giving our caregivers the very best tools and processes and technology to allow them to do what they do at an even better rate. And then the second thing is for our patients' experience. And so we are looking into a whole host of different potential solutions to help our patients access and experience the healthcare delivery system. We at Texas Health Resources have 29 hospitals across the 16-county region here in North Texas. We've got 35 surgery centers. We have 26 urgent care centers. We've got hundreds of physician clinics. And to Charles's point, that can be overwhelming, especially if you're new to the area and you don't know who's who, where do you go to get certain things. And so we're looking at how do we leverage technology through our app, through different programs that we're exploring right now. How do we make that even easier for people to get to the right place where they can get the right care at the right time? Not everybody needs to be at the hospital. Some people need to be in an urgent care. Some people need chronic disease management through a primary care physician. How do we make it easier for them to connect with the right healthcare resource at the right time? And that's one of the things that we're looking at from a AI and technology standpoint, how we can help to solve some of those problems.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. I mean, I don't have much more to add than what the team up here has presented. I would say that for us, it's because we don't have as much resource. We are very intentional in, and I heard the innovation group, what resonated with me, and I think it's really how we approach technology and innovation is, what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And so we become very intentional about what is the problem, what are we currently doing, and where is it that technology and innovation can help us and help our providers, our team members really practice at their highest license. Nurses want to be in front of patients, doctors do too. And I think a lot of the healthcare processes are inefficient and has kept them away from the bedside. So really being able to understand what that problem is and how best can technology help. Because we are so community focused and really look to community needs and understand the challenges that our community has, we are really diving into more of the remote patient monitoring and the digital technology allowing those community members to actually access health closer to the home. So that would be the only thing that I would add.
Well, I think I'm getting the signal that I've got to wrap it up, although I still have lots of questions. So you may be getting emails or calls or faxes from me at some point in the future. But I just want to say, please join me. Thank you so much for sharing just a small bit of your story.